Welcome to the Running Channel podcast with me, Rick Kelsey, him over there, Andy Baddeley, and her over there, Sarah Hartley. Now picture this, you two. You're on the start line. You've been through hundreds and hundreds of hours of training. You've been through sweat, blood, tears, emotions, fear, anger, pain, borderline destruction to get where you are. But you've done it. And then, beep, 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 beep. Beep, beep. 1% battery.
Oh my gosh, I actually can't envisage anything worse. But don't worry, because in this episode, we're going to go through our top 10 tips for 24 hours before race day. Get your pen and paper out, make the notes, and then this won't happen to you. You'll be ready to attack the race with everything you need.
I'd argue that your impression of your watch running out of battery actually sounded more like a lorry reversing. Also, that hundreds of hours of training, you definitely can't have been describing your own experience of training for a race.
The first point is correct, the second one, not so much.
But other than that, we're also going to be talking about the latest news in running and answering your questions, which is clearly the best bit. So let's get into it.
Okay, we're recording this quite far in advance this time because both of you are going off on your Easter holidays with your kids.
Yeah. Woo!
Woo!
Yeah,
How are we feeling about it?
Good, and you ate an Easter egg for breakfast.
I did yesterday. Sometimes I feel like when you're working from home, you just really lose sense of self.
There's a good segue there where we're taking our children on holiday. And
I ate an Easter egg for breakfast.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, which is
What's your segue?
That was the segue. That you're essentially, you are a child.
I am a child, yeah. No responsibilities. I am currently taking my dog to school, but apart from that, not so much.
Very exciting. Yeah, we're away. We're flying as a family of 5 for the first time.
Really excited about that.
I am excited
chosen
about
your
it.
Seats?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Who's drawn the short
Well, I'm in
straw?
business, and the other 4 are.
Nice.
No. I am flying. We're in a 2 and a 3.
Right.
Directly behind each other. I'm with my daughter, who's our oldest, and she's a bit scared of flying. So. She's scared of the idea of flying because she can't remember having flown before.
How can you only bring in some of your kids? Like, what was the choice there? What was the selection?
Some of them didn't make the cut.
They just drew out of a hat.
Just based on behaviour.
Right, that's it. Yeah.
We're a very strict household.
Fair enough.
If you haven't ticked off every day for the last month, you don't get to go on holiday.
Can we just address the fact that you're trying to pass off only having to look after one child as more hard than your lovely wife who's going to have to look after 2 children who are both younger?
Yes, the boys are a challenge. I've invested in some noise-cancelling headphones.
For you?
Not for...
have you? You've only just done this?
Well, I've already got them, for the 3 children.
Oh, right.
So that they can have headphones on the flight.
Because we were in a meeting here the other day, and I said, I love these headphones, because we've been testing them for the channel.
Yeah.
Some new ones. And I said, I love these ones because they've got ANC. Now, very, very rarely in running terminology in this office do I say something that the rest of the team go, what did he just say? And Sarah went to me, ANC, active noise cancellation.
Cancellation,
We could do with ARC microphones, I think. Active RIC cancellation.
Very quick.
Sorry, mate. But yeah, when I'm out there, I'm under strict instructions to not train properly. Because I'm then too tired to do proper parenting. So I'm allowed to do a little bit of running, but not like any long runs or hard workouts.
What, on holiday?
Yes. So I can do a bit of a jog in the mornings to kind of keep myself sane and keep things ticking over. But that's so I guess that answers the questions. Like, yes, I'm going to run on holiday, but no, I'm not going to do kind of a full training week because then that will...
I mean, fair play to you if you go running on holiday. I don't tend to do much running on holiday.
We feel surprised precisely nobody. So yeah.
I mean, I get a few MPGs in. Miles per Gavi.
Miles per Gavi.
I bet you don't. I bet you don't get any in.
I did get a lot of stick actually on the Run Channel Club the other day from some of our international friends about why we always talk when it comes to running, living in the UK where we have miles, in kilometres.
Well, I would always have talked in miles previously.
Exactly, but now you talk in kilometres.
Bashed it out of you.
No, it's not so much that. It's that I know exactly how fit and fast I was when I was competing as a professional, and I did everything in miles. So the only way I could kind of get over the kind of constant disappointment compared to my former self was to change to kilometres and not think too hard about the conversion.
They just go by quicker.
Well, they're simpler to work out, aren't they? 1,000 metres. But at the same time, it's also, you could argue, a little bit arbitrary that America has miles, Canada has kilometres. What has Australia got?
Kilometres.
Kilometres.
I mean, all countries have all. It's
As in,
not like
on the road signs.
right. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that is
yeah.
a strange thing. I prefer miles because to cover a distance, you only have to tick off. Say to cover a marathon, you only have to tick off 26.
True.
Whereas when you're going through the marathon in Ks and you got like 35 to go, that's
You're like 1:42 to go.
still quite a lot to tick off.
Yeah, I think if I did actually do a marathon one day, I would start training in miles.
Would you?
Because, and I'm not saying I'm doing it, but if I did,
you sure?
Well, no, I actually, if anyone hasn't seen it, Jess and I have just done a video on stepping up from a half to a whole, which is what we did a podcast on about a month ago.
Yeah.
And we kind of had this nice little discussion in a park in East London about this. But that wasn't my point. My point was...
Heaven forbid you diverge from your point.
What was my point?
Oh God!
It was about whether or not you're going to do a marathon. I think.
Oh, yeah. So if I was to run a marathon, the reason why I would, I think, switch back to miles instead of kilometres is because you have that psychological boost when you go through the tunnels and the marked mile posts that you don't have in kilometres.
But I think in Valencia, I don't think there were mile markers, or I certainly don't remember any mile markers. They were kilometre markers.
I think they had them. They were a bit more subtle. So it was in reverse.
You wouldn't know. You saw absolutely none
I
of
do
that
enjoy
course.
it when they have both. That's nice, isn't it?
It is.
Then you get the joy of like, oh, another milestone.
Yeah.
And then you can choose whichever one you want to work in.
Yeah.
Well, I still think that Rick's edging closer to actually running a marathon, which is exciting.
Hey, there's always potential. But you know what else there's potential for?
Yeah.
Top 10 tips 24 hours before
There's
race day.
Also, I'm gonna put in a disclaimer right now. If people count these in the next however long this podcast ends up being,
yeah.
there definitely won't be exactly 10. So
Don't
just
okay.
bother.
Yeah, there might be 12,
be
there might be
less,
8.
there might be more.
Yeah.
It's just a nice round number.
yeah. And to be clear, this isn't just about the marathons. There's been a big marathon focus. Obviously, we're giving Rick stick about marathons, but this is relevant to any race that you might be doing.
Yeah, we don't just talk about marathons.
Preparing for it. Some things will be more relevant than others. You need to be sort of more well-fueled the longer the distance you're going to run.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think there's my tips are mainly to do with the psychology of it. I think that my personal tips that I want to give.
Right. Well, let's start with the serious, boring tips. Andy.
Brilliant. So I get the boring ones. That is that a reflection of my personality?
Hydrate properly.
That is point number 1. Should I do it in that voice?
Yes, please.
I don't think I can.
The
Funny enough,
glasses really add to that.
as an
Or in the voice of the British miler.
which you can't
Andy
replicate, actually.
Baddeley
Andy Baddeley on the
I'm not
stop
going
line.
to do
enjoys
it.
a quiz on a
But
Wednesday
I was
night.
recording some voiceover with Owen for a video the other day, and I sort of lapsed into a gentle Welsh lilt for that because
you?
Owen has a lovely Welsh accent. I'm not going to do that now because it would offend lots of people. But I did sort of get trapped in this weird impression I was doing, and that could cause a lot of trouble. So I won't do that. Don't want to have an international diplomatic incident on our hands.
Oh, I'd love to hear that, Boyle. Give me your
Oh, no, well,
finest
you're-
Welsh accent. Go on.
So-
Show my.
Rick, that is
show my-
actually terrible.
Oh, no, it's very good. I used to live in Wales.
Really not.
No, it's oh, but that's selected.
Producer. Oh my.
Dimagwibble. Do you know what dimagwibble means?
Do you?
It means you can't park here at any time.
Does it actually? I'm looking at producer Owen. No.
Well, dimagwibble, it's at any time on a parking. Not at all.
Dimagwibble
That's
means
similar.
not
Yeah, not
at
far
all.
off. Yeah,
we
yeah.
got. You should take a
I
look
think
at this. Rick.
Dimagwibble is what we should say about your ability to do any accents again on this podcast. I'm so sorry to anyone listening. I just said, let's not do it because we'll offend loads of people.
Yeah,
Rick.
sorry. Go on.
Rick
Yeah.
strides straight in there. We do have, for a bit of reading after the podcast, we bought producer Owen, who is Welsh, can speak fluent Welsh. We bought him a children's book, English to Welsh alphabet.
Nice. We are very generous, if nothing
Yeah.
else.
Great birthday present.
Can I be boring?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
go on
Yeah,
then.
go back to hydrate properly.
Yes, hydrate properly. It is boring, but it's the simple one, and it's something you've got complete control of. And there's a balance to strike. So drinking stuff throughout the day in the 24 hours before your race, and not just on the morning of. But also don't drink so much and so late into the evening that you're just going to be up all night going to the toilet.
True.
That's the key thing here. You might want to add in some electrolyte powders or other drinks, so you're not just drinking straight water. And then check the colour of your pee. So if your pee is already clear, then don't drink loads more because you're going to there is a genuine risk, particularly for longer distances where people are like, oh, I know I've got to hydrate, so they drink too much. Of something called hyponatremia, which is quite dangerous, which is drinking too much.
Yeah. You want a pale
overhydration.
straw colour, don't you?
You
For
do.
your pee?
Yes, that's exactly right.
There is a pee colour chart that you can look at online.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We actually used to get given those for the Olympics, so like literally
you?
a physical pee chart.
Really?
Yeah. Which sounds
Aw.
pretty basic, but there was loads of stuff up in the Olympic Village, like the posters in in our like bathrooms in the apartments, just like reminding people to close the lid of the toilet when you flush the toilet and stuff like that, because of just how many germs can spread and how paranoid everyone is about getting ill before. But yeah, there would also be like a pea colour chart to make sure you're hydrated. So yeah, boring but really important.
Well, sticking to kind of food and drink, eating a balanced meal the night before doesn't really matter what distance you're training for here, but I think a lot of people can get really kind of nervous about what they're going to eat the night before. I would say the best thing that I've done definitely before racing is just try and keep it to kind of what you're used to.
Yes.
It's hard if you're like traveling for a race and you're kind of eating out at a restaurant and foods might be a little bit different. But I honestly don't think you need to necessarily switch it up too much. Just try, if you are doing a longer distance, to kind of get a few more carbs in there and do that in the build up to the night before as well. But just try and stick to what you're used to. Don't try anything new. Don't have spicy food.
Yeah,
just
play it safe. Stick to, like, if you're looking at the menu in a restaurant and you've got little control over what you just choose the most basic thing. Like whether that's going to be sort of grilled chicken and rice, or whether it's going to be like a lasagna or some kind of basic pasta or something
Chicken
that you've had
jalfrezi.
before.
Margarita pizza. Woo!
Well, yeah, I mean,
Lovely.
anything that you've had before, and then the next day you went running and you weren't even thinking about it because it wasn't a race. Then you're probably okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you're full as well. Like the day before, especially if you're doing a long race, your aim should just be like whenever you're hungry, just eat a little bit. So that can also be something that you quite easily forget, especially if you are traveling somewhere from a race. You can kind of go like, oh, it's 4:00 and I haven't had lunch yet. Oh no.
Yeah. Think about the timing and try and plan it and take stuff with you if you need to. Like you might be working the day before, and so like that's the thing that you can control. And bear in mind that if you're not running a marathon, then you probably don't need to massively carb load, and therefore you don't want to go into a race feeling bloated and worried about going to the toilet and all that sort of stuff. So again, a bit like the hydration, don't overdo it. Don't be silly and start like eating loads of extra stuff that you wouldn't normally eat, because it's just going to make you feel rubbish.
Do you know what I love as a snack in the lead up to a race? I love making banana bread. It's such a good...
It's quite a nice therapeutic stress reliever as well, I imagine, actually making something.
Bit of baking,
Yeah.
add a bit of chocolate in there. Chocolate banana bread.
Well, that sounds good.
Lovely.
That sounds
Rick?
good.
I was going to talk about the lead up when it comes to sleep.
Of course you were.
So obviously we should be trying to get a good night's sleep before a race, 7 to 9 hours and whatever you're used to. And that kind of obviously involves kind of like the nerves that you've got going on as well, building up. And a lot of us obviously have real problems sleeping before a race. And actually one of the best things Andy has ever said to me advice-wise is,
Wow.
Andy Hobdell.
Savage for new listeners to the podcast.
Lovely.
Andy Hobdell is my coach.
Who
Coach
Rick
of the
forgot
Olympics.
that he'd ever
No,
met.
Yeah.
it is actually time off your feet. And if you're not sleeping well because you're so nervous and you're worried about the race the next day, then just resting, closing your eyes, not moving around, relaxing your muscles is going to do you a lot of good, which is why I'm always kind of like, when you go to the race day event to pick up your bib at the exhibition the day before, it's always about, 6 mile walk and you're on your feet the whole day.
Oh
It's
my
just
goodness,
really not ideal. So if you can pick it up 2 days before, I'm like, can you pick it up 2 days before? Or if I do go, I just want to be there and back and as little time on my feet as possible.
Yeah, that was what I really noticed at Valencia for the one marathon that I've done. Picking the bib up the day before.
Oh my God, you were so
I was so cross about it. I was like, there's literally no element of that.
Big queues?
Yeah, a huge queues. Did you
For
not come?
hours? No, I was in the queue with you.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
You looked at me surprised then.
It was so good, and it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, but I was like, there was
compared to
no
the
About
other-
an hour. It was about an hour.
There was no element of that expo experience that is designed
was
for people
in-
trying to run a marathon.
it was in the
is
sun.
so awful. Like, and that's not specific to Valencia. It's you like
I completely
you have
agree.
to travel miles out
It's
of the city.
wretched.
Then you have to queue for ages where you're standing up.
Yeah.
Then you go in and then you get your number and then you're like, oh, that was great. An hour and a half and they've just given me my number.
It was a 3 hour round trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know how they would do it any differently though for any race, because you need you obviously you don't need all of the activations and stuff, but it's a lovely thing that you can go and kind of like for Boston Marathon, for example, it's like such a thing to go buy the jacket, look around all of the stuff, but then it is that catch-22, because one of the biggest bits of advice that we will give for like race day itself is nothing new. Like whatever you are using on race day, make sure you have practiced with it, but then the day before you're going to this expo where there's wristbands or there's new gels, or there's new shoes, or there's new
tempting,
laces,
isn't it?
there's a new hairband, there's a new sports bra, there's new socks, there's a new invention that could make you 2 seconds faster.
I'm just going to defend the people who do it well, though. And I know what you're talking about, Sarah. That's great. And you can see all that. But not every marathon is like the one that we went to in Valencia or the one that we went to necessarily in Malaga. London is so well run. It opens on I think it's the Thursday until the Saturday at 5 o'clock. There's no set times you can go in. You can just roll up whenever you want. You walk in, you get off the DLR, you go in and you go and get your ticket and your bib. It's so
I do
simple.
think that is good.
I think Valencia was open for a few days beforehand. It's
Yeah.
just obviously because
But the
we were coming from so far away.
No,
and then
London
we went on
has
the Saturday.
those queues as well.
On the Saturday, I think London has queues.
Okay.
Because it's essentially people who have either been working during the week. Or don't live in London or Valencia or whatever, then travel in likely. Most people probably travel on like a
Day
Friday.
before, yeah.
So then you're sort of left with Saturdays. That's why there's this big influx of people.
That's probably quite a good tip then to add in here. Because I went
It gets
for
there
mine for
early.
marathon.
middle of the day on the Friday for the London Marathon. I just went literally in and out. I didn't stop, look at anything.
Yeah.
Got my bib, done.
Do you know what? I love looking around an expo. If you can get there early, like if you are there a few days before, have a little look around. It's so good. Really takes your mind off of it. Even though you're like, it was the one time I remember for London, and to be fair, any expo that I've been to, it's the one time you're like in the race weekend, but in that environment, I don't feel any nerves. It's just all quite exciting because it's like a whole room of runners.
Yeah, you're surrounded by all people that are kind of feeling the same as you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The time off the feet that Rick's talking about is important. If you can, like I appreciate that plenty of people actually the day before a race, they have a job which involves standing up during the day, whatever that might be. So I suppose that's normal for you, but if you can minimize it as much as possible, then you're going to hopefully reap the rewards on race day. Back to this, can I have a sleep one? Can I jump in with my sleep point?
Go on then.
So my points are about, I had two. One is visualization, which maybe we can come back to in that 24-hour period. The second one is helping you get to sleep that night before.
Yeah.
So Rick's right. The fact that you're off your feet, lying down in bed, even if you can't sleep, is still better. And you should just try not to panic. Just accept the fact it'd be hard to go to sleep. A bit like being a child at Christmas, which I imagine is how it still feels for you, Sarah.
It is, yes.
Yes. So I've said this before, but I do think it's worth repeating. Doing something before you actually turn the lights off the night before the race, because that's when I am most nervous. I feel good about everything, lie in bed, I've been reading my book, switch my bedside light off, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I'm meant to go to sleep now. And then that's when all of the thoughts, those intrusive thoughts come in, and I start thinking, well, what if this happens? Oh my goodness, have I packed that in my bag? Is this, what if I feel like that, or I'm worried that I haven't done a long enough training run or any of those things. And I can't do anything about it in that moment. I'm just sat in the darkness, listening to those thoughts, and they stop. And then I'm going round and round. And I don't know anyone listening to the podcast or you guys ever felt that kind of, it's like a mild panic attack feeling where you start to feel a bit hot and a bit sort of anxious. Yeah. And then that spirals, and then you're like even less likely to get to sleep.
Yeah.
So my personal tactic is to write a list of the stuff that I might possibly worry about before I turn the light off. So I sit down at a table and just make a list on a piece of paper of all of the stuff that I could worry about. So not having packed the right things, haven't done the right training. I'm worried about, I was always worried about competing against other people, that they might beat me. And then I would, once I've completed the list and I can't think of anything else I could possibly worry about, then I'll quickly go through the list and write down a very quick rational reason why I shouldn't worry. So I'm not going to worry about forgetting everything because I've ticked off my checklist and my bag's already packed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about the other people I'm competing against because I can't do anything about them. I can only control myself. I'm not going to worry about my hydration strategy because I've practiced it on my longest run, so I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And every time I go through one of those points, I'll cross that one out, like physically cross it out or scribble it out like quite aggressively.
Quite aggressively.
Well, because then it feels like you've properly like dealt with it psychologically.
Right.
Sorry,
All
I
right.
was picturing that.
Yeah.
I mean, quietly but aggressive.
Like through the
Imagine.
paper.
Yeah.
Imagine the next time Andy runs a marathon, if you two are sharing a room the night before, you're just going to be dozing off, and then you're just
I love your list. I think your list is brilliant. I did it before Sarah and I ran Oxford last year, and I think a lot of people are quite, because you're in a city that you don't know about, getting to the start line transport-wise is something that you've got to plan. Maybe not, and it's going to be the time of day that you probably didn't do it the day before if you went to the expo.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I did prepping for that race. It's like, right, well, how am I going to get from this rental that the family was staying in to to the start line to meet Sarah. And as it turns out, we were there about an hour and a half early. But
we had a lovely time though. But that is a really good point of on actual kind of race day for whatever it is, 10Ks have done this. We even recently actually for the 5K that me and Andy went and did.
Yeah, we thought we were going to be able to get to a certain car park, didn't we? We couldn't get there.
And we couldn't. So always double check like road closures or even like transport changes. I know I can't remember what the race was. There was a race recently, a marathon where people said the trains to get there were just awful because they were chucking people off at different points. So if you can research it, allow enough time. I know it's really annoying when you have to wake up early anyway and you end up getting to the race itself and you're there far too early, but I promise you that is better than even being like a few minutes late, because there is nothing more stressful, and that uses up energy, that kind of stress on race day morning. So just being able to like go through the steps and get there is what you need. And
conversely, I would say that if you are in a position where stuff's gone wrong and you've got to the race an hour later than you intended, and there's loads of stuff that you now can't do as part of your routine, I would try to reframe it in your mind as, oh, right, well, that's dealt with the nerves now. I don't have any time to be nervous. I've just got to, like, it is what it is. I'm going to get on with it. And you've no longer got the time to kind of agonize over every detail. So actually sometimes that can help.
Yeah,
God, this is really exciting me. I don't know why. Sometimes we talk about stuff and I just get tingles. I've just got tingles about
really? Because do you like that?
I love any form of adrenaline.
His eyes, literally.
Yeah, quite scary.
Can I talk a little bit about prepping? So this is something that I will do every single time, no matter what distance I'm running. Preparing gear and kit the night before is the single best thing that you can do. Also the day before, if you are just kind of twiddling your thumbs, if you're not somewhere like new and exciting that you can go and explore, if you are like going from home the next day, then I think the best thing that you can do is like choose your race day outfit, charge your watch, lay out anything extra that you might need, like food or snacks for the morning or fuel for the race itself. Safety pins. When we did the 5K, I'd had no safety pins and I was like, it's fine. Staying at my parents' house, they'll have safety pins. My parents had no safety pins. And on the morning, I was like, don't worry, it's fine. They'll have safety pins at the race.
4, not 2.
Yeah, 4 safety pins. Also think about...
Does anyone think that numbers have got 2 corners?
No, but Rick's put one on with like top and bottom before, as opposed to like 4 corners. Okay. Might not be safety pins. You might be using the magnets, or you might be
whatever
using...
you need. You need to have
whatever
them with
you need. But yeah, think about how you're attaching that number as well. Maybe even the night before, if you have your bib, pin your bib on the night before. And make sure everything is charged. And also, if you're going for a race where it's really long, like ultra marathons, think about charging. Like, are you bringing a power bank with you? Are you bringing, like, go through that kit list when you start to do things like ultra marathons or kind of trail races or races where you are out for a long time. You might get something called a mandatory kit list where it will have literally like every single thing you need. I honestly think doing that for yourself for like a smaller race is great, because then that you have no chance of forgetting anything.
Make your own mandatory kit list. So like, I'm not going to go to a race without these things.
Banana.
You're just going to shout banana.
You're right.
Yeah, you okay?
Honestly, a
Do you need a glass of water?
No, I'm great. Honestly, banana. If in doubt, banana.
Sort of loosely related to food, we also asked the sort of question as to what tips people would give in the Running Channel Club. And it is a brilliant place for that, because if you have got a question, there's going to be someone in the club that has experienced exactly what you're asking about. So if you're going to a specific race maybe, or just generally, and you want to ask a question. And Damien's is the one I want to dial in on, which is a really quick one, but make sure you got a toilet roll with you. So in that kit bag, because sometimes you get, the queues will be pretty long, sometimes at a busy race if there's Portaloos at the start. And then 2, because the queues have been long, you might have got there after a whole bunch of other people. You've been queuing for ages, so you don't want to go through that again. You get into the toilet and there's no toilet
paper.
So,
also, it never fails to amaze me how quickly humans can absolutely ruin a Portaloo.
Oh, lovely.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there are the amount of times I've gone into a Portaloo and been like, wow,
Do you know what?
The human race is not evolved.
We are awful. And what was brilliant then is to see how quickly talking about a particular topic can ruin someone's vibe.
So look at Rick's
immediately
Sorry, we'll move quickly on. So Mark also gave a really good tip, which was name on your top so friends and family can spot you more easily and supporters can give you a shout out. This is a great one. Write your name on your bib and so many random strangers will just shout your name and it really makes a difference on the day.
And here's one that's not going to be applicable to everyone, but I actually think it's really important to think about the experiences of different people. People experience like so I would be excited for the sensation of race day and having people shouting on the course and all that sort of stuff. But Keith actually put a post in the club saying that as an autistic runner, I think it's important to point out the atmosphere isn't amazing for everyone. For me, it was utterly overwhelming and I reached sensory overload after an hour and a half. So if you need headphones, wear them or at least have them on some loops so you can regain some headspace. Well, careful actually, because I don't know whether you'd be allowed to wear noise cancelling headphones in a lot of races. You can wear open ear bone conducting headphones, some because of safety. Like it depends on whether
even though it's obviously there's not any traffic.
Well, not all races are closed roads.
Oh, if it's a closed road.
No, but
race.
I don't know what the rules are. I'm pretty sure that like in England, the England athletics, like the official rules are that only open air headphones are allowed. I mean, plenty of people do run with other headphones. But my point here was also just be respectful and aware that other people might be experiencing things in different ways around you as well, and support one another. That's what I love about the running community generally.
And then one last tip also about supporting. If you have got people coming to watch you, arrange what side they're going to be on. I think we often take this for granted because we're filming. So it's just such a like, run on the left, guys. We're going to film you from the left.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know, I shouted at Owen once and he still didn't see me.
Owen was so annoyed about
I did the reverse of cheering on. I shouted at him.
Shout at me, please. Cheer
for me, please.
I'm doing so well.
Owen, it's Rick, cheer for me.
Good.
Literally, blank expression.
No, he didn't. Owen clocked you, and then I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he was so annoyed. It was so good.
Welsh.
Did you shout at him in your Welsh accent? Is that why
I did. Yeah, he just ignored me. Show my back.
But yeah, arrange which side they're going to be on. Also, if you do have supporters, then if it's going to be really loads of crowds, get them to hold something funny, and then you know where they'll be.
Do you know what I really like? Instead of like the kind of obvious, don't go off too fast. I like the advice. Future me will thank me for this.
Of going off at a good pace.
Future me will thank me for this.
Oh my God, yeah. Do not go off too fast.
Because you just get so caught up.
Yeah.
And in an hour's time.
It was so awful.
Well, also, if you go off 1.1 seconds too fast in a 5K, then you'll be shouted at by the person you're running with.
Oh, that was too fast.
Yes. You might listen to them. You might ignore them. See how it goes.
There is one thing we've mentioned, which is like an aside, but we might not think about it. Quite often, if you are worried about going to sleep, or if it's just a Friday night and you're racing on a Saturday, a lot of people might just have a drink with dinner, a drink of alcohol, that is, or a couple of drinks. And I mean, we're saying don't change anything, but alcohol is like pretty well documented to, whilst it might help you get to sleep.
Yeah, so
your quality of sleep during the night is impaired quite significantly. So.
Also, it will dehydrate you a little bit. I remember I went and ran a 10K with my cousin who was doing it for the very first time. And it was so hot. It was in Brighton and it was so hot. And I was like, I was just running his pace. So the night before I was like, are you sure? We were at the pub and he was like, yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It was not fine.
So you've learned through experience.
Yeah. Also, don't have a full English breakfast on the day of running a half marathon.
Well, that's because you were really dismissive of the pace that you thought Rick was going to be running at. You thought it was going to be easy
because
for you.
I thought it was going to be 15 minutes slower than what it was.
I still think that was a brave thing to do.
Fried eggs.
Still brave. All right, that was great. Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, I'm hoping that people listening, if you've got any that we missed, email into podcast@therunningchannel.com and then we can quickly whiz through them in a future episode to kind of help other people out, and really hope that this helps to put your mind at ease. Basically, we want you to have a good experience. Good luck in any races that you are doing.
Right, news?
Yeah, so a leading British athlete, this is Ben Connor, who was part of Team GB in the marathon at the Tokyo Olympics, has turned down a place at the European Road Running Championships after being asked to pay to compete. Now, Ben says he was asked for £1,100 to compete. It's about $1,500. But UK Athletics say actually the figure's more likely to be around about £500. And we were talking about this earlier, and Andy was saying that this could be actually per event.
Yeah, this is just for this very specific event. So it's for the European Road Running Championships. And it's worth saying as well that because we're recording this slightly in advance because of our pending holidays, Rick, there might be some updates to this story by the time this podcast comes out. But as it stands, yeah, my understanding was that it was made clear in the selection policy that athletes might be asked to contribute up to £1,100 towards going to this event. And that's because in UK athletics, the governing body's mind, this is a new event that is on the calendar in addition to all of the kind of stuff that you would expect. So the World Athletics Championships, things like the various World Indoors, European Indoors, other championships that UK Athletics would send a Great Britain and Northern Ireland team to represent the country in. And this is a relatively new one, so they thought they needed to subsidise it. I think this is more of a reflection of UK Athletics' finances than a desire that they would really like to do this in the best circumstances. But Ben's made the point that as someone who grew up in a working class family, like does this potentially, like people shouldn't, if you've met the selection criteria to run for Great Britain, should you ever have to pay? That's his point, because there'll be some people who just might not be able to afford it.
Yeah, Sarah's got a slightly different opinion to me on this, which is probably a good thing. I think this is potentially crushing a nut with a sledgehammer. So UK Athletics has lost £1.2 million from its funding in the last year. And I think it's a real big deal to say, I am not going to run for my country without giving much more background to it. And instead of saying, well, you know what, I don't think this is right, because I think this has got a lot of publicity. And I think you could get just as much publicity saying, I'm not going to run in this time. I'm leaving myself open to the future. I think it'd be better if they did it this way. But the point is, 500 people have ran for Team GP this year, and there's just not the funding to do all of them. And it's not just in athletics. I mean, take journalism, for example. I had to fund myself to do, to train, to put myself forward in certain elements when I was training to be a journalist. And like, I just kind of think, yes, great, make a good point, but don't throw everything out with it.
No, I'm fully on it. This is their job. And like, there's so many athletes in the UK that are good enough to represent their country, but for whatever reason, there isn't enough money for them to quit their job and do it full time, to not only have to struggle to kind of afford to be able to do what you're really good at and you are good enough to represent your country at, and then when you finally get selected to have to pay to be able to do that. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone should be paying to run for Great Britain. I think that it's I think that throughout my career there were fewer major championships and so on, I suppose. Like these things didn't exist then. So I'm aware of UK Athletics' problems of trying to secure sponsors and therefore have enough money to run the governing body. That is difficult, but this isn't. I never even, like, if I got selected to run for the north of England or to run for, so in hierarchy, I suppose it's slightly easier to qualify for your county, then for the north of England, then for England, then for Great Britain, because the pools of people are getting progressively bigger and it's more competitive. But even at all of those levels, I would, you get taken to run a cross-country race in Brussels, or you competing in a domestic fixture, but for England or for the north of England. I would never have had to pay or cover my expenses or anything. I think
that's what is weird. If the level below are doing all of their competitions for free, and then to step up you have to pay, that seems odd. Yeah,
and it's not loads of money, but I don't think it's about the amount of money. I think it's Ben's point is kind of that it's not a level playing field, and if you're a young athlete and you literally don't have whatever ends up being £500 or £1,100 to pay, then it's not the best people being picked, and it is relative. You're talking about multi-million pound TV deals and £20 million of money that comes for the Olympic cycle, I think, from UK Sport to UK Athletics to distribute. I know that doesn't go very far, actually, when you're trying to administer the infrastructure of the sport and that sort of thing.
What would be interesting, actually, is one, to see how other countries are doing it, because obviously these international competitions. So if other countries are managing it fine, then like, what's the difference that's not enabling it to be the same for the UK? But also to start to think about like, how on the one hand are we able to add all of these kind of new competitions, and for there to kind of be a lot of investment going into that, but we can't get the athletes there. Like, there's a breakdown
Yeah, I think this is a really good debate, but the problem is that you've got less money going into UK athletics. Athletics is getting less Olympics funding for the next cycle. At the same time, you've got more and more competitions. And if someone said to you, right, okay, well, you're not one of the top runners, so you're not completely funded, because the top runners are completely funded here. So it's not like we're taking money from the top runners. If you're kind of a fringe
There's very few runners that are fully funded.
Okay, but you were for a time, weren't you? Fully funded.
Yes.
Yeah. And flex.
I was, but even then,
Yeah.
even then, I think and we are going back a bit, so there's an element of inflation. But I think the lottery funding that I qualified for was about £18,000 a year.
Yeah.
So it's not like that was amazing to get a level of funding that helped me to do stuff. But I don't, that on its own, if I didn't also have a shoe sponsorship or whatever,
As well.
then that's a relatively low amount of money to try to travel around the world on and train.
Yeah, it's like go and do a training camp.
But I think we're lucky in some ways in this country that so many athletes are fully funded. I mean, if you look at some of the Olympic associations who turned up in Paris last year, one thing I really noticed was how many athletes were not funded at all and had paid to come to the Olympics because their Olympic committees didn't fund them. And like, if someone offered me the chance for £500 to compete for GB, well, I'd find £500 to compete for GB. I'm not sure what I'd be competing in, but but I think this is a great debate, by the way.
Yeah,
and
I think it's hard.
There are other sports where people do in the UK. My understanding would be, for example, an age group triathlon, that this would be fairly familiar territory. So if you qualified for your age group for 40 to 45 at the World Championships, or whatever, then I think you'd be expected to pay for your kit and perhaps your travel.
Dressage.
And things like that.
You've got to pay so much for dressage.
The difference here is that that's not the senior elite team. Like there's one. It's the pro team, right? Like the best of the best. That's where I think that if you've been picked for Great Britain as a senior athlete and as a junior athlete as well, because you're on your way to getting there, then that's you're the best in your country in that discipline. And therefore, to go to an international championships, whatever it is, then I would hope that we, as a governing body, would have the money to support those athletes.
Yeah,
I don't want to bang on, but if you're not the best athlete in your discipline, so there are 500 athletes per year, so in some ways you're not the best athlete.
Figure?
So the 500 figure is the amount of people who compete for Team GB athletics per year.
That sounds very high.
So if you got 500, then you're not necessarily... Up to 500 athletes can wear the GB and NI vest in each year across all disciplines and competitions. And UK Athletics feels it's better to give athletes opportunity to compete than not to send teams at all.
Yeah, because it's hard.
That is true. I'd be really cross if they were just like not sending a team at all. So that I mean, there is a
they can't
rock
win
and a hard place
if there's not the money. It's an interesting debate though. I would love email in podcast@therunningchannel.com if you have any thoughts, if you want us to go into more detail with this.
On Jeremy Vine next week.
We've really gone into it. Also, it's worth saying that this is the exact type of conversation that happens a lot in the Running Channel Club. So if you are someone who loves kind of discussing current running news and you actually want to join in this conversation literally with us, then do go check out the Running Channel Club. But should we quickly finish off with a couple of questions before this becomes the longest podcast in history?
I think you should do a question this week.
I should do a question. Okay. Christoph from Budapest. Lovely, I can pronounce that.
we spent a few lovely days in Budapest, didn't we, in 2023?
We did. It took us a few days to get there as well. Dear Sarah, Andy and Rick, I started listening to you a few months back and I've been hooked ever since. Love the banter, love the science. Hopefully you loved that debate. My question, I'm running with my daughter with a stroller buggy 2 to 3 times a week, which are basically easy runs, although due to the fact that I'm pushing around 20 kilograms ahead of me and only have one arm to drive myself forward, my pace is slower than my usual easy pace. So usual easy pace is around 6 minutes per kilometre. It's now turning into 6:30 to 7. My Garmin has no idea about the buggy, so it might be thinking I'm performing worse. Any idea how to tell my watch I'm running with extra weight? Andy and Rick, have you tried running with a buggy? Andy's got too many kids to run with a buggy, and Rick's being looked after by the grandparents.
Well, there we go. Problem solved. Well, I mean, there's things. I don't think there's a buggy setting on your watch, like a buggy running setting. But there is, for example, a trail run setting. So VO2 max is impacted by the way that your watch thinks you're running. So if you're running the same routes as normal, but slower and with a higher heart rate, then your VO2 max is likely to go down because your watch is thinking that you're less fit. But if you tell the watch that is a trail run, if you're out on the trails, but that forces you to run more slowly, you're probably dealing with terrain and elevation, then that won't affect your VO2 max because it knows that it's a trail run, so it knows that you should be slower. So my only sort of immediate thoughts are to change the type of run that you classify the buggy run as, to sort of, if you care about things like your VO2 max, because yes, it is going to be impacted. And then also to remember that all of your kind of running dynamics, so stride length and cadence and all that sort of
all
stuff
change.
Will be different, because if your watch is on the wrist that's holding onto the buggy, then that wrist's not moving at all.
Yeah.
So your watch has got no way of working those things out. So you might want to wear the watch on the other wrist if you're using one hand, or put the watch in your pocket, then you wouldn't get heart rate data unless you have a heart rate strap. So there's loads I hadn't really thought about the complexity.
There's a lot of change. Yeah, that I did try running with a buggy and really, really enjoyed it. Albie, on the other hand, not so much.
That is true. You do need cooperation from both the runner and the rider.
They need to be a willing participant.
Yeah. Right. That was good fun. Sarah, have you got a favour to ask?
I have got a favour to ask. If specifically on this question, if you have ever run with a buggy, or if you have any friends who have run with a buggy, can you email in podcast@therunningchannel.com? How do you get around it with tracking, stats, watch, all of that stuff?
Yeah, do you care?
Do you care? And whilst you're at it, please do share this episode with a friend. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.